At least once every couple weeks, I'll be watching some kind of fitness content, usually trying to get motivated for my workout, and I'll get recommended some kind of epic adventure video. Someone exploring the mountains or just hanging out in them, connecting with nature. Sometimes it's something to do with cool history or fantasy or a video game, what it was like to travel in the year 1000 and how you'd prepare food for the expedition, traditional camping in the highlands, stuff like that. I'll click the video and right away my entire mindset will change. It's like suddenly I remember how much more there is. I get this simultaneous feeling of joy and longing, and I can't help but feel the typical filmed in a gym fitness video I was watching just a moment before is really the small thing. I get that feeling and think, that. I like fitness, but whatever that is, how it feels when you remember how big the world is, I want more of it. It happens sometimes throughout the day too. I'll be in the middle of the workday and take my dogs out for a quick break and see a giant flock of geese fly by overhead, or before bed I'll look up and remember there's a moon. It's a great feeling to have, though it can be a dangerous one if you're not conditioned to it. You might start to feel like you need to act, like maybe the simple life you live now has you missing out, like maybe it's time for a change. Should you drop everything and go on some kind of epic month-long adventure, say screw exercise and work in the city and go hike some kind of through trail, sell all your stuff and go do the van life thing, join some kind of fishing expedition, or go work on a deep sea oil rig, even though it would probably be kind of terrible just because it seems so different from what you're doing now? You could, and you might feel satisfied for a bit, but the feeling will come back. It always does, and what then? Delete your life once more and repeat the process? Again, you could do that, but there are ways to harness that feeling without abandoning everything. There are ways you can use it to improve the life you have now without needing to start over. I think it's safe to say everyone here is interested in exercise, so today let's focus on that. As small as training and fitness and lifting weights might seem when compared with getting lost in the mountains or trekking across the sea in a boat, living life as some kind of witcher or hero in a fantasy world, it has the potential to be just as epic. So then, how can you harness that wanderlust and use it to make your training more like a grand adventure? It's actually surprisingly easy. The secret lies in your imagination. Here are 6 things you can do to make your training more exciting and, more likely than not, speed up your progress in the gym. Level 1. Maybe you train at a gym using a basic routine, and exercise feels more like some kind of chore you need to get through just because you feel like you should, rather than something you enjoy. The easiest thing you can do to change things up is to change how you see yourself. Rather than just another average person going through life on autopilot, why not imagine yourself as some kind of historic or fantastic warrior, a rogue, as the main character from your favorite anime if you like that, as a witcher, and think of your training as a way to become more like them. Most badass warrior types have at least a base layer of muscle. Now your basic bodybuilding program has a greater purpose. Now you're training not just because you feel obligated to, but because you're the hero. Every workout is like some kind of hyperbolic time chamber training montage. You'd be surprised how much of a difference a bit of imagery can make. Not only do your workouts improve, but the sense of purpose you feel in doing them improves as well. Anytime I find myself just kinda going through the motions with my training, I can always get back on track by thinking something like, would I be taking it easy if my life and the lives of those around me depended on my physical strength? Would, insert whichever character you like, let up for even a second? Probably not. Time to get back to it. Level 2 builds on the first. You've chosen to embody some kind of character, someone you think is cool. Now take it a step further by training to perform like they do. What does a witcher need? Endurance. Rather than just getting your cardio in because you're supposed to, you train to endure long enough to track monsters for days on end and still have the energy needed to fight when you find one. Power. You don't squat and deadlift because it's just the fitness thing you're supposed to do. You squat and deadlift to build power for combat. To build the powerful hips you'll need to swing your sword with enough force to cut through tough hide. Vertical pulling strength for climbing, be it the side of a mountain or a wall, would also be needed. Rather than just doing pull-ups to build your lats, you do them so you have the back strength to climb. The same could be said for grip and forearm training. I saw a video a while back. A historian was giving his interpretation of an ancient text describing Vikings. By the way, I know Viking is a profession, but you know what I mean when I say it, so that's the word I'll use from here on out. Essentially, he interpreted it to mean Vikings weren't at all like the giant, high body fat strongman types they're often associated with today. They were more like powerful strength-endurance athletes, built less like Thor and more like Alexander Skarsgård in The Northman, said to be capable of performing difficult tasks for a very long time, rowing and farm work being good examples, strength endurance, and they were said to be very powerful for a single blow, things like max power rather than max strength. Throwing something or performing a power clean would be more in line with their builds than constant max effort deadlifts. Whether that's actually the truth or not, it sure gave me a lot of motivation because 1, I think Vikings are cool, and 2, because those are my strengths. I love strength, endurance, and power. Now my 2-hour stone carry sessions feel more meaningful, as does my explosive sandbag to shoulder lifting technique. I'm not just training for the heck of it, I'm training to perform like some kind of Viking warrior from the past, and that makes all the difference. Level 3. You've chosen the character you want to be, your training is geared towards improving things they need. Now you might consider the actual tools you use for that training. If you need the strength to lift an opponent, barbell deadlifts are a great choice, but sandbags or stones are probably better. The awkward and unpredictable nature of odd objects means you develop a more rugged strength that will carry over to lifting an opponent. Does your character use a weapon? Overhead pressing dumbbells is a great choice for building shoulder strength, but more specific would be building your shoulders using a mace bell or a weighted training sword, something that more closely resembles an actual weapon. Is your character a martial artist? Perhaps training your core with cool band movements rather than basic sit-ups or hanging leg raises would be a good choice. Bands are also a great way to train rotation. You could actually climb rather than just doing pull-ups. If your character needs to be quick on their feet, you can start doing some agility ladder drills. The options are endless, and these changes aren't difficult to make. They can all be done training in the same place you already were. Sometimes all it takes is a bit of creativity. On to level 4, and here's where you may need a bit more commitment. This one will take more effort on your part, but honestly I believe it can be the most beneficial thing of all. If you want your training to capture that spirit of epic adventure, the single greatest thing you can do is change your training environment. It's one thing to imagine yourself as a fantastic warrior training in a gym, but imagining it when you're in the woods is a different thing entirely. Getting way out there if you can is the best, but even a small change can make a difference. Maybe you start doing your calisthenics workouts at a nearby park. Maybe you run around town rather than on a treadmill. If you like barbells, even just getting a basic setup with some cheap squat stands and training in your yard or in the parking lot of your apartment building is an option. Just being outside in the elements, feeling the sun on your skin and the wind on your face, the uneven ground, the scent of the trees, the heat or the cold, it changes everything. Also, I prefer it, but if you don't, changing your training environment doesn't need to mean going outside. If you've embodied some kind of fighter, why not find a fighting gym with a weight room and train your lifting there? The atmosphere will be totally different. The same could be said for powerlifting, strongman, or Olympic lifting. Maybe your training avatar is a bit closer to home and competes in one or all of these things. Well, surrounding yourself with others who also have that goal will make a difference. Moving to level 5, this one might be hit or miss depending on what your goals are and what imagery you choose to use, but for the right person, it can be huge. Level 5 is to dress the part. Here's an example. Level 1, you think witchers are cool, so you imagine yourself as one. Level 2, you gear your training towards skills witchers would need: strength, speed, agility, endurance, etc. Level 3, you train with implements that more closely mimic what a witcher might use, lifting stones or sandbags over barbells, climbing boulders rather than basic pull-ups, using a mace to train your shoulders or a sword to train your forearms. Level 4, you go train in the woods or mountains like a witcher would. Level 5, you buy garb that looks like something a witcher might wear. One step closer to full immersion. I think a lot of people are kind of done with it now, but I still think Viking stuff is awesome, so I got myself some cool, historic-ish Viking gear. Now when I'm out in the woods training, it feels that much more real. Level 6 is the final level. This one in many ways goes against everything else in this fitness-focused video, but I do think it's worth having here. If every week you get 7 hours of free time away from everything else you have going on in your life, and you currently use all 7 of those hours to train, you might consider just training less. You will make almost identical gains training for 5 of those days rather than 7, and reasonably similar gains training for 3 if you're smart about it. If you often feel like something's missing, like there's more out there and you're missing out, like you need an epic epic adventure, then the solution can be as simple as actually going out and adventuring. Rather than training for an hour 7 days a week, why not train for an hour 4 days a week and spend those other 3 days out in nature, just wandering around, hiking, hanging out if you want. Watch the world around you for a while and you'll remember, no matter how distant you may feel, you are still part of this world. Taking a slightly different angle, you could also use that time to deepen your connection with the character you've built. Training to be a witcher? Get your gear on, head into the woods, and practice your fire starting skills, or some basic bushcraft during that time. Learn the names and medicinal properties of the plants that exist in your part of the world. Learn to sew or something basic like that. There are so many things you can do that go beyond exercise. It's easy to get caught up in the physical side of things, but learning useful skills can be equally as meaningful. And the cool thing is, if you commit to learning something new and approach that learning with the same drive you have for exercise, you can actually get pretty good at a lot of things in very little time. So, what do you think? Would you consider using any of these ideas? Does training to be the main character sound awesome to you? Or does the idea of exercise LARPing make you cringe? Both are valid. All I can say is, for me at least, life is more fun when it feels like an adventure, and infusing my training with a bit of imagination has taken me one step closer to that. If you're interested in trying something new, in training to be more like some kind of powerful warrior taken straight out of Legend, in gaining strength and endurance and lots of muscle that carries over to any situation where strength is required, consider checking out my book, Sandbag Hypertrophy, over on Amazon. It has everything you need to transform yourself with sandbags and calisthenics, from theory and mindset to exercise technique, and includes 2 complete training programs for you to follow. Link in the description. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.